Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because we got two toys to check out today. It's Megatron and his Armada. Okay, bad jokes aside, it's actually Legacy Armada Megatron and the slightly more recent Galvatron repaint. I picked up the Megatron a little while back and I've really enjoyed it so far, but I figured it'd be fun to compare these two, see what the differences are, and I'm a bit of a sucker for this Galvatron repaint any day of the week, so it had to happen. And hey, this one is brought to you by Transforverse.eu, a European toy store full of Transformers including Generation, Studio Series, Masterpiece, and pretty much whatever else you can think of. So if you live in Europe, you should definitely give them a look. I'll put a link to their site down in the description below. In the meantime, we should go ahead and get this guy out of his cardboard prison, see what it's all about. And as I say, I really like the classic toy of this colour scheme, so it'll be interesting to see how this compares. It's just so unusual in so many ways. I mean, we've seen these kind of lilac-coloured Galvatrons before. That's very Takara Tomy in its way, but combined with the red and the cream and everything, I don't know, just a bit unusual. Oh, here you go. Look, you got to kind of thread him through the back of the box. I think I'd forgotten about that. Not forgetting about this little bit. You should never forget the tip, should you? And then that just slots onto the end of his gun barrel just there. It's complete. And here we go. Here's Galvatron out of the box. And my word, that colour scheme is working for me. I absolutely love that purple. The kind of off-white is lovely too. It's all just so nice. And I really think this sculpt captures the essence of the character from the cartoon. It just looks fabulous overall. I'm very, very pro how this thing looks. It's not to say there aren't some quirks in handling it, but purely from a look perspective, as I say, this thing has aura, right? Like you look at it and you just think, my god, that is a handsome toy. But then, you know, the same was true of the original release, and as much as I am trying not to go repaint happy when it comes to current generation's toys, these two, I just couldn't resist. Honestly, they're just both such great original colour schemes, and so different as well. I do like that they retooled the face for Galvatron. I mean, it's not much in the grand scheme of things, but it does help to differentiate the two of them slightly, so that's pretty cool. And coming in on the detail there slightly, you can see he's got this kind of grimace going on, which is very nice actually, showing his teeth. He's got those lovely red eyes, nice gold all over this head sculpt as well. It's a winner. Alternatively, here we've got the Megatron release, which just kind of looks a bit grumpy, if anything, by comparison. I still really like it, although I think I prefer the Galvatron one, and I'm not sure I dig it quite as much as the 2000s alternative, which we'll take a look at, but this is still really good. Now, there are lots of weird choices about these two, but none of them strike me quite as much as this, which on the original toy, this was a little slider that would move up and down to kind of produce a face mask that would cover the face for the tank mode. Here, it's just statically molded, so it's like the illusion of a gimmick. It's like this was a gimmick at one point, and now it's just a kind of statically molded piece, so kind of a strange choice. I don't really know what to say about that. I find it quite odd, and I guess it just feels weird because it looks like it should move, right? Like it absolutely looks like you should be able to wiggle that up and down, and especially if you've handled the original toy, the 2000s toy, you're gonna sort of intuitively feel like you can move this thing, but you can't. So strange. But look, overall, I'm really not looking to quibble too much because the chest area of this guy is very nicely presented. Clean, crisp paint where you find it, you know, nice colors, really nicely saturated, so it's all good. Of course, the same is true of the Megatron version. You got a little bit more color variance here with these like orange highlights, so that does pop quite nicely, although you might want to be careful with these bits just on his shoulders there, because when you move the arms, particularly for transformation, they have I would say, a little bit of a worry about paint chipping just there. Legs are super nice on both versions with these sort of dark silver highlights and little kind of gold just there on the feet as well, so that looks great. Really nice molded detail as well. Pretty much the same deal on Megatron, just different colors, and you know, it's just such a novelty to see this design with ankle tilt and things like that, so we'll get to that, but it's still fun. So yeah, generally speaking, I have zero quibbles about how these guys look. Neither one of them. I think they look superb. Again, a little few quibbles about how you handle them and the gimmicks and that kind of stuff, but purely from a look perspective, they have crushed this design. I really think these two are spectacular. And you know, perhaps that's thanks in part to how closely they stick to the script of the original, right? Like it very much does resemble that classic toy, that classic mold, but a little bit more articulation, as we're going to see, a few different proportions, but you know, the essence of it is there for all to see. And there are a couple of things about this comparison that I should clarify before we move on. Firstly, this is the Takara Micron Legend version, so it's actually Megatron S technically, which I have done a video on before, but you know, the colors are slightly different on that version to what we got in Armada, so just worth bearing in mind. And secondly, that classic toy is one of my all-time favorites. Like for me, it's just such a timeless design. It's an absolute all-time banger, you know, let's put it that way. So any kind of comparison with a new toy versus that one is going to be a little bit difficult, right? Like naturally, you know, there's quite a high bar to clear, but I do think that the new toy despite its quirks, I think it does a good job. And as I say, I do think the new one looks fantastic. And it's interesting to note that although, yes, we're comparing versus the Takara version here, the colours are absolutely not one-to-one. I mean, the purple is a lot more kind of a straight-up purple, whereas on the original, it's kind of a bit more pinky, if anything. You know, the red is a lot warmer and more saturated on the new version, and that white is actually got kind of a little bit more kind of yellow to it than anything. Like, they're both off-white, don't get me wrong, kind of like grey, kind of warm grey on the original, but there's absolutely a little bit more kind of saturated yellow kind of going on there for the new one. Very interesting to see. Where the Legacy version can't quite compare is on some of the paint that you perhaps don't obviously see on the old one, you know, on the vintage toy. I mean, here on the treads, it's got this kind of like brown amongst the treads just there. I think it's supposed to be maybe like dirt kind of painted in, but it just looks fantastic. It really adds a little something. You know, compare that to the flat black on the Legacy toy. And it's not a major critique because it is maybe a little bit above and beyond, but it's just not there. Similar story on the abs of the classic toy. You've got these little bits of grey painted in amongst the ridges just there, which just adds a little something in terms of the dimension. Comparatively, that's just a flat lilac on the Legacy toy. Well, and again, you know, I'm not really looking to critique that hard, I'm just pointing it out, but this thing does have some paint applications like here, as I mentioned earlier, to be fair, and overall it does look really nice. Same is true with the original Megatron colours, and again, we're comparing versus the Takara original here, although actually the colours in this case are basically the same as the Hasbro release, bar the grey face instead of a purple face that the Hasbro one had, so it is a little bit more kind of a straight-up comparison here, and actually again, it's really interesting to see. More saturated purple on the Legacy, the greens are about the same, I want to say, like roughly anyway, and the orange is definitely more saturated on the vintage. Honestly though, considering how deep my love runs for this classic toy, this classic design, I mean, I just love it so much. I'm actually pretty enamored with the Legacy one. Like, I always said that I wanted to see the original toy, but maybe with a little bit more articulation, and that's not exactly what we've got here, but it goes some of the way at least, even if we have had to trade in some gimmicks along the way. But let's talk about articulation anyway, because it's actually a big part of what I want to discuss with this toy. I mean, firstly, the head will move from side to side, so that's all good. Won't really look down, won't really look up, so that's a little bit of a shame, but hey ho. Now, the shoulders are... Let's come back to the shoulders, shall we? Elsewhere in the arms, you get a bicep rotation and about a just over 90-degree bend at the elbow, so that's all good. And there is a wrist swivel as well. I really wish they'd covered these holes up with little panels or something, honestly. The hands themselves are both different, but they are statically molded. They kind of look like they should move, but they don't. You've then got a waist swivel in there. You've got thigh rotation, and the hips are all good. I mean, completely unimpeded. Will go well past the 90-degree mark, so that's really great. And then you've got these nice ratchets on the knees as well. And that was always the joint that everybody wanted on the classic toys. It's fantastic to see it here. I mean, seriously, as much as I am praising this classic toy, you know, there's no forward motion in the hips, there's no bend at all in the knee, they're just kind of completely static, they just move out from side to side, if anything, so it's really great to see on the new one. There is also then an ankle tilt with this really nice kind of little detail just in there as well to kind of make it work. That really bends quite far, so very much appreciated there. And you could kind of move the toes as well if you wanted to, but very stiff joint there for transformation. Okay, I guess we need to talk about these shoulders at long last, don't we? And they are an oddity because there's no forward and back motion at the shoulder at all. Well, there is. I'm lying actually, because you can move the shoulders forward here. Like if you fold up this little flap just there is the shoulder. Where the shoulder's kind of connected in there, it will move forward, but not back. And that's a weird one in itself, but the fact that the pylons don't move, so strange. I mean, what's actually going on here is he's got similar shoulders to like Legacy Sideburn or Kingdom Rat Trap, you know, where they're connected to the back, not to the kind of sides of the body as such, so they will kind of rotate out to the sides, and as I say, they will move forward, but because they're impeded by this kind of back piece here, they're not going to go back any at all, you know, they're not going to kind of go backwards. And that is strange by itself, but again, it's the pylons not moving that really gets me. Now, for the avoidance of any doubt here, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like on the classic toy, when you move the arm at the shoulder, the whole pylon goes back or it comes forward. And that's just like an interpretation of the design, of course, because it's not the only way to do it by any means. That's just how the classic toy did it, but it's strange to see it static on the new one because it does limit the posing somewhat. I'm not going to lie. I mean, that you can kind of fan them out to the side like so. I mean, that actually does help a little bit with posing, believe it or not. But the fact that you can't move them back and forth is just strange to me. I don't know. It's this little joint just in there that is the problem because there's no hinge on there. And it's good that the shoulders are independent to the pylons in my opinion, but this bit should absolutely rotate. Now, Now, I have seen that there are some kits, you know, some third-party kits and things, and people are 3D printing them as well to try and make solutions for this, so there is that option, but it's a shame that this wasn't included from the go. And look, it's not like these guys aren't posable. They actually pose pretty nice, despite the kind of quirk of the shoulders. Like, you do kind of have to work around that a little bit and get creative with it, but they do look fantastic when they are posed, and the knees and the legs and everything else that's going on is superb. So I love all of that. It's just, yeah, it's a strange one. It's just the shoulders, man. They really do take something away from the posing of this toy. I mean, I have to say, it does kind of make me laugh, because we spent the best part of 20 years saying that we'd like to see a new version of the original toy, but with knees, and when it finally arrived, they fluffed the shoulders. You gotta see the irony in it, right? Again though, all Mickey taking aside, I do want to stress that as much as, yes, the shoulders are a thing, you know, and they absolutely will kind of impede the sense of freedom that you get when posing this toy, it's still great fun to mess with overall, you know, like it's still an enjoyable design. It's just that one quirk, really. That said, it's not the only element of the new design where the original arguably has a bit of an advantage. The other one being this guy. Yes, of course, the original toy, both versions came with Leader 1, the pack-in Minicon at the time, and the absence of this thing is definitely felt on the Legacy figures. You can't deny it. Now, for the uninitiated, if indeed there are any, then the Minicons were basically like the Micromasters of their day. They were tiny little transformers with 2 modes. They were cute as a button and a lot of fun too. But probably the real reason they're remembered so fondly is because of their interaction with the larger figures, because they activated all kinds of gimmicks. And obviously in the case of Megatron here, if you just kind of slide it forward when you've got him on the Minicon port, you reveal the little shiv in his hand. Now, yes, you could very often activate these gimmicks without the Minicons present, but it was a huge part of the play pattern of the time, and it's no surprise to me that it's very keenly remembered even today, because, as I say, it's just tons of fun. Now, that is a big advantage to the original toy, because the new one doesn't have this shiv, so the whole gimmick is just not there, doesn't have the Minicon ports functioning, doesn't even have the Minicon itself. What you get instead on the Legacy figure is a 5mm port for a bit of Evo fusion, I guess, so you can peg stuff in there. And that's cool as well, like that absolutely has its place. I'm not dissing that at all, but it's just not quite the same, that's all, especially as there's nothing included with this toy to actually peg in there. Not to jump ahead to the tank mode, but it's the same thing here, you know, where this little Minicon port, once you plug the Minicon in and you can kind of slide it to the side, that's what activates this gun, kind of pop-out spring-loaded feature, and you just don't get that on the new one. You still get the pop-out gun, don't get me wrong, but it's just activated by hand, so... And you know, this is not a Minicon thing, but that is just so cool. I always loved that gimmick on the original toy. Now, I should stress that in all honesty, I don't need the spring-loaded stuff, right? Like, I'm fine without that, because we have the original toys for that, and it's no big problem that these updates dare to do something a little bit different. They don't need to be one-to-one recreations, but I do think that the lack of a Minicon partner is a crying shame, because it's a little character all by itself, and honestly, for the leader class budget available here, and the fact that the transformation's not all that complicated, I really think it should have been included. Now, the absence of the other Minicon related gimmicks is probably more keenly felt in the tank mode, but there is more to go in the robot mode here. So first of all, you just want to slide off this little turret there. Then you can fold away his hand. Again, I wish it was covered, but you can just go ahead and fold it away and plug that in like so. And that is a super tidy little addition. I really dig that. It's something a bit different. The original toy actually didn't have that, so that's good. You know, new gimmicks, new ways of doing things is very cool. The other thing you can do here is the whole bringing the tank turret round to the front thing. So the first thing you want to do is just slide down the waist like so. I've no idea why, but that's quite satisfying. And then you just want to flip this bit down and bring that whole back section round to the front like so. Now, yes, without a bit of posing, he kind of looks like he's wearing a bum bag, if anything. That's what Americans call a fanny pack, in case you're wondering and you're not sure about my English vernacular. But then you can just fold these guns out to the front like so. And there you go. It looks kind of cool, like very silly, don't get me wrong, but he does do it in the cartoon, so there's absolutely precedent for it. And of course, it was on the original toy as well, so I think it's kind of awesome, honestly. Like, I love this kind of goofy stuff. Additionally, it's in this configuration that you can go ahead and add on the extra pieces that come with Legacy Tidal Wave as well, starting with the wing section that just clips on the back like so. You've then got some rather adorable little platform shoes, and then just like on the vintage version, you've got these arm pieces. Now, I originally thought that they connected to the lower arms, to the forearms just here, but if you do that, these pins in here, the joints are not really strong enough to hold that up, and so what they've done instead is they've connected it to this piece, or at least that's how it shows in the instructions. At least you just kind of plug those in on the side like so and just let them hang. And there we go, he's all armored up. And I do think it looks kind of cool. It's a bit of a different approach with the way that those pieces connect to the arms. That took me a bit by surprise, just because I'm so used to seeing them attaching on the forearms, literally. I mean, that's how the vintage toy does it, and the third-party option as well. So this is something a little bit different, and it does make it a touch more stable, although I gotta be honest, it's still not all that solid. It still will come apart if you knock it too hard. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like what they're going for here, but you know, this bit still doesn't really hold up. It just kind of sags down in the peg like so. This side is better, like it will kind of come forward a little bit, still a bit saggy just there. So I don't know that this is any better of a solution than anything else really. Like maybe it is, but it's still kind of all, I don't know, it doesn't feel that solid to me. It could have been better. And you know, again with those shoulders, essentially this back piece, this wing piece kind of tabs it all together and holds it solidly in place, or at least it should do, but again there is a bit of give in there, so I don't know, it's alright, but still not the definitive solution for me. Like even the little shoe things don't stay tabbed on all that solidly. I think what you ultimately get with this mode, you know, with these additional pieces on, is a nice display piece. You know, once you handle it, it kind of doesn't have the solidity, it's going to fall apart a little bit, but hey, it looks super cool, and I do think that it works really nicely with this Galvatron colour scheme as well, because it kind of carries through the purple from Tidal Wave, so that's really nice. It looks great, but maybe just doesn't handle so well. And if you're going to do something like this, you need to add in this extra strong joints on the core figure. That's just the lesson here, I think. Really though, you don't need all those extra pieces. It's just a bit of an added bonus, if anything, if you do happen to have Tidal Wave, and he does have enough firepower all of his own, because of course one thing I've actually not shown you so far is that you can just position the tank turret in the sort of more traditional format where it's sticking out to the side like so. And honestly, as simple as that is, it's still pretty cool, right? Like that's a great way to display him. It's a lot of fun to activate as well. Very simple as I say, but effective. Anyway, in terms of comparisons here, you can see the Megatron with a couple of other Megatrons from recent generations past. You've got the Earthrise mold and the Kingdom Beast Wars equivalent, both the kind of premium finished versions anyway. And I really love every kind of like varied design of Megatron that we've had over the years, so to see them doing such great updates of these, I just think it's pretty terrific. Alternatively, here you've got Galvatron versus his G1 namesake. This is the Studio Series toy, which is going to be another review coming up from Transforverse, by the way, so look out for that one, but they look great together. Really digging those different purples. And then here's a side for you, because of course it's the Megatron with the Legacy Armada Optimus Prime mold, and again, they look really quite striking together. I mean, obviously the Optimus is way larger, but that is kind of how it was in the show, and I kind of like that these are not overly slavish as well, like they're kind of cartoon inspired, but they've still kind of got a little bit of their own flavour at least, so I think they're doing a great job with these remakes again, and long may it continue. In case in point here, you got them with the awesomeness that is the Titan class Tidal Wave. I mean, the fact that we got this thing just last year, it still blows my mind, to be honest. Just look at it. You know, probably the biggest grumble about these new versions overall is the lack of Minicons, as I say, and we have seen some of that, like with the Powerlinks hotshot that they did in Legacy. That came with the little jolt, as you can see here, so it's a shame the same wasn't true of Galvatron, to be honest. Like, I would love to see more updated Minicons, because Jolt is fantastic, so they can definitely do it. It's just sad to see that they're not, and as I said earlier, you know, the Megatron mold really does feel like it's lacking something because of that. Anyway, we're doubtless going to have more to say on that score in tank mode, so let's go ahead and check out the transformation, shall we? So first things first, you want to flip that tank barrel around to the back. We can then just fold in the hands like so, and then you can fold down these side sections on the shoulder pylons and just fold the hands in and then close that up. And then this is where you want to slide these shoulder pylons up, and as you do so, this black piece from underneath the chest will just kind of slide out. Now, you want to slide these bits onto the top of the chest, but this is where you've got to be careful about those little orange bits of paint just in there, so just avoid getting any paint rub or anything, and then just click that little black piece into place. Then just rotate the waist, just making sure the backpack is out the way as you go. Then you want to fold his heels up and fold his toes down. And then before we can fold the legs in, you need to move these little panels out the way. And then lastly, you just want to fold these legs up and into position just here. And there's a couple of tabs that you just need to kind of get lined up like so. And then just bring the tank barrel around to the front. And there we have it. It's all done. Very, very simple transformation. Like, it's absolutely no challenge. I think even my son managed this without the instructions, right? Like, it just is very intuitive. It basically does what you imagine it's going to. The only real bit of like surprise is those little black sections coming up from the underside of the chest, but otherwise very straightforward. And you know, this mode is quite the sight in either color scheme really. Like, they both look really good. The colors are so nice on either version. Again, I would be hard pressed to tell you that I preferred one over the other. They both kind of have their style and presence and whatever else, and two great color schemes on one really fun mold. What's not to love about that? I mean, here you can see there's really quite a lot of very nice detailing going on and some great paint applications as well, actually. Little yellow highlights, the silver just here, the orange here is paint as well, so a little stripe along the side, the Decepticon logo, the silver trim here. So there is a lot going on, actually. Like, for modern day generations, I think the paint budget here is pretty well applied, and it's quite strange to see because you've even got stuff like this little grill just here, which traditionally on the classic toy was the sound box, and now it's just like a little molded feature, I guess. So that kind of stuff is quite weird, but it does look really good on the whole. I mean, for me, the really strange stuff is like turning him over to see the face just kind of sticking out there. Like, again, this little cover just there that is on the vintage version, that absolutely would have been welcome, I think, in this case, to do something about that face. Just, you know, hello. Yeah, some people maybe also will critique the feet and the heels just kind of sticking off the back there. That is, to an extent, you know, accurate to the cartoon, so maybe that gets a pass. Slightly more egregious for me is this little noticeable gap on the side just there. I mean, it's not terrible by any means, but you can just see the little bit of shoulder. Overall, though, I love what they're cooking with this mold. And again, you know, on the Galvatron version, all the paint is super nice, the detailing looks great, the shape of it is fantastic, and it's, I don't know, it's fun to behold. It rolls really well. Of course, it's not got working treads or anything. I mean, you wouldn't expect that, but it does have little wheels to kind of roll it along on the table surface, so great fun. You can move the tank turret around quite freely. That goes most of the way around, at least, and of course you can move the tank barrel up and down, so what more do you want? You do also have this little additional cannon, which again on the original was a spring-loaded piece. Now here you can move it up, but it only goes so far. It only sticks straight up vertically, so that is a little bit strange. It might have been nice if it could fire forward a little bit, but it's there, I guess. Really though, it's about what's not here, and the true oddities of this mold are all too plain to see in this tank mode, because it's stuff like this, right, where this was a gimmick on the original toy. This was like a little spring-loaded thing that kind of folded out and you could store Minicons in there, except here it's a static molded piece. It doesn't do anything. It's like a homage to a gimmick that now isn't a thing anymore, you know? The same is true on this side. This used to be a thing that kind of flipped forward, and again you could put Minicons on it, and now it's nothing. Both the rear sides of the tank have these little kind of panels that look like they should be able to fold out, and maybe that's just my brain because they did fold out on the original, and you had little compartments in there, and one of them was a little jail that you could put Minicons in, and they look like they should activate here, and they just don't. Ultimately, I guess that's just not what the Generations line is going for at the moment, you know, with like light-up features, sounds, spring-loaded gimmicks, all of that stuff is in the past, you know, it's for kids or whatever. I don't know, that's just not what these toys are about, but it is still strange to see, especially when you have molded features here, you know, statically molded features that look like those gimmicks should still work. You kind of can't help but think about them somehow. I mean, the mad thing is, I still haven't listed off all the things that the vintage toy can do, because it can also fire little missiles out of its turret and all kinds of stuff, you know? It's just absolutely stacked with features, and many people remember it for that. So I guess what you're getting here is fundamentally a very different product, you know? It's more of an action figure than a quote-unquote toy, you know? You can still play with it, of course, you know, that's not banned, but it's just not the same priorities, I guess, when it comes to like gimmicks and play pattern and all of that kind of good stuff. Now, interestingly, I put this to my son. I showed him both Megatron versions, the new one and the old one, and I asked him directly, which do you think is better? And I had half a mind that he might say the vintage version, just because I know he loves a gimmick or two, but actually his answer was really interesting and not what I expected, because at 7 years old, he kind of said, you know, in his own words anyway, that the real best toy was somewhere in between the two, you know, that if you could take all the fun and all the features of the old one, but give it the movement and the articulation and, yeah, all of that good stuff of the new one, then you'd have the perfect version. So, and I think he's right at the end of the day, you know, the perfect version is somewhere in between these two. It's neither one nor the other, maybe, and that's not the most satisfying answer in the world, but it just kind of is what it is sometimes. And to be honest, you know, I don't necessarily miss all of the gimmicks. Like, some of them, absolutely, yes, I do. I think it's a shame not to see them here, or something at least, you know? But for me, the one major inclusion that is absolutely missing here is the Minicons. And I think if they're going to continue to do Armada homages in Generations, then they absolutely need to include the Minicons, even as just little separate things that don't, you know, interact or do anything. They just kind of plug in and sit there. They're still fun to have, right? And this absolutely should have come with one, in my opinion. Still though, I've really enjoyed both these versions overall. I mean, there are some quirks to them. The shoulders is just such a weird choice, as I said earlier. I still can't quite wrap my head around that one. But, you know, putting that aside and the Minicon thing aside, otherwise there's absolutely tons to like about this design. So for me, whichever version you go for, they're both super nice, and it's most definitely a toot. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this review is brought to you by Transforverse.eu, a European Transformers retailer that's got tons of stock in right now across Generations, Studio Series, Masterpiece, pretty much whatever you could want, robots in disguise related. So I'll put a link to their site in the description below, and you should go ahead and check them out. I'd also be very grateful if you could leave me a like for today's effort, please. But otherwise, that's it from me. So have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.